Hello, and welcome back to the Jack and Joe show, where after I believe, 2-week hiatus where work called for me and then a power cut, well, didn't call for me, just exploded in my neighbourhood like an Adama Traore sprint. I'm back, and Jack Stroud will be thrilled to know that I'm only back after a positive result rather than a crap one last week. Jack, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Lots to talk about, I'm sure. It's a double match week, so two games to discuss rather than one.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Thursday night football, wasn't expecting it to come this early, in the project, but here we are. We've got 2 home games to look forward to, and I say look forward to. That was definitely not how I was feeling pre the Spurs game. I was a bit concerned, I have to be honest with you. That run on paper, we both spoke a few weeks ago about not fearing anyone. I still do stand by that, Jack, and I think you probably do as well. But let's face it, after the Wolves game, Anderson out, we weren't feeling too positive. I think it's fair to say with that run of games ahead of us, it's not ideal, but we've got a great performance to talk about. And in our opinion, a great result, a result that we probably deserved more from. But in the circumstances, firstly going behind, then going down to 10 men, I think to get out of Tottenham with a point, I was very, very happy with. And we saw each other. Obviously, you were in the stand this time, Jack. We had a great day, although not together for most of it, but it was a fun day out. And, let's face it, that walk back that we were just speaking about off camera was made a little bit easier by the fact that we didn't lose on this occasion. It's personally, I think it's the first time that as fans we've been there and not lost, because we obviously drew when it was lockdown.
Yes, same scoreline as well, 1-1. I think coming out the ground, I was really pleased. And then in retrospect, I was a little bit like, oh, actually, you know what? We probably should have won that. However, we did have to play 15 or so minutes with 10 men. And obviously against the top 6 team, you're sort of praying that you can sort of keep your shape and hold them out. But really, when we went down to 10 men, a couple crosses into the box, Leno claimed, and that was really it. It looked like we actually were more keen to score the winner than they were with Wilson's late breakaway. I thought overall the performance was one of the best of the season so far.
Yeah.
By definitely. And I want to praise one player in particular, and that's Issa Diop. I know he got man of the match from the club, and rightfully so. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. A player who obviously we would rather have his replacement in Joachim Andersen in the side, but when Anderson cannot play, and obviously he cannot play for the next few weeks, then I'm more than happy for Diop to come in. I think he's grown as a player. I think he's got better since he's been at the club from last season, even from last season to this season. I think he played a vital part in pre-season, being part of the squad, and even going back to when they were playing water polo, and he was absolutely crushing it. I think he's an integral part of the squad, and I feel like even though he's not first choice, he should be, he should be respected enough to be the man to be called upon when Anderson can't play. And I'm really pleased with him. A couple of hairy moments where Tete and Bassi went down injured, but hopefully they'll be fine for the next game. They're fine to continue. And some of the best counter-attacking football we've seen so far this season from Fulham. It's just a shame, yet again, we're going to talk about missed chances. And I don't necessarily think that we missed, like, I said this in my wrap-up on Patreon, that we didn't miss like gilt-edged chances, but we tested the keeper who made very good saves, and we just came close to scoring. It wasn't like I came away thinking we should have scored that chance. So I think they were all sort of like Forster got to them, as opposed to us just completely ballsing it up and not putting it in the back of the net. To a man, I thought we were fantastic. I thought Spurs were incredibly ordinary. And their goal only comes from the fact that we have an adventurous and brave left back in Robinson who just could not get back. Nelson probably should have covered the space, perhaps. That's my one disappointment, but I'm not going to sit here and be negative about Reece Nelson. I thought he had a really good game after a really poor game against Wolves. It's just a shame that Kenny got sent off, because it would have meant Adama Traore was about to come on, I think, said Marco, and that would have really made things interesting. But I thought Wilson was fantastic when he came on, like unbelievably good. And I think he may start and should start against Brighton, Joe.
Yeah, and if he doesn't start against Brighton, he'll certainly start against Arsenal because Nelson can't play, I presume, unless Adama does. But you'd think that Wilson's got to be the first name on the team sheet out of the two at the moment. I loved everything about this performance. I thought that Leno had a good game starting from the back. First minute, Bassi has a bit of a blunder, passing across the face of goal. He'll know that he shouldn't have done it, and Leno saved us. That was the only time that I would say Spurs missed a gilt-edged chance. They only had 2 in the game, that one, and obviously the finish by Brennan Johnson. Aside from that, it was, shots from range. Maddison one. I've seen a few people saying it was really close. Was it? It was the outside of the post. It was going like it was not close to going in.
Yeah.
Compared to some of our ones. The Jimenez chance is the only one where I think that it's probably a player that should have scored. But even then, it's a very good save from Forster. I'm talking about the one in the first half from the Tete cross. Iwobi's one just after that. Great move, great attempted finish and a great save, ultimately. Couldn't really have asked him to do much more than the ones in the second half from Diop and from Iwobi just before we went 1-0 down. I don't think the players could have done too much more in those positions either. Love the midfield balance. We'll talk about why we were playing that midfield, I guess, in a bit, but we've been calling for it anyway. The midfield pairing of obviously Sasha Lukic and Sander Berger. Berger was obviously ill, we think it was, for the Wolves game, so that wasn't an option, but unfortunately won't be an option for the Brighton game either because Lukic got his 5th yellow, and then apparently he was very close to getting a 2nd yellow, and I didn't really see this in the ground because I didn't know he'd been booked. But loads of Tottenham fans were saying, he should have had a 2nd yellow. And then instantly he was hooked for Tom Kenny, who equalised, which is actually just quite amusing. Obviously then got sent off. I love the midfield balance. I think I agree with you, Jack. I think it was one of Reece Nelson's best games in a Fulham shirt. I thought that he was on the front foot a lot of the time. He should have done better for their goal. I don't even want to beat around the bush. He should have done better. I think it's his fault that goal has gone in. It's just defensive work. Great he sees him in front of him, and ultimately it's happened twice now because it happened against Everton as well. It wasn't the goal scorer, but Ashley Young, that was Nelson's man. I don't want to beat him up for it too much because he's an attacking player. He's not there to defend, but when he defends so well and then one slight, misjudgment, it's just frustrating. But he had a great game. Dennis Odoi-esque sort of flick off the back to control a cross. Fantastic. Another great game, I thought, as well, from Iwobi. Obviously, got the assist and was dangerous throughout. He's probably been our player of the season so far at this point. And Jimenez, great link-up play, nearly scored. The only one that I thought has had a couple of mixed reviews was Smith Rowe. A few people saying he's a bit quiet. I personally thought that he wasn't. I thought that he was pretty making effect in midfield, driving forward. A little bit quieter in the second half, perhaps, but I don't think it was a bad display by any means. I thought he was really driving us forward. And we haven't really mentioned them, but the fullbacks, both fantastic. I gave man of the match to Tete just ahead of Diop, but he would have probably been my second choice. And Bassi, after that one herring moment, was imperious. So just a fantastic team performance, in my opinion. Well worthy of a point, probably worthy of 3. But what a reaction to that Wolves performance, and hopefully showing that was a blip. If we'd have beaten Wolves, for example, I think we'd be looking at this even in an even more positive light right now, thinking, what a continued fantastic start of the season it is. So I think let's look at it like that. It's a great result away from home, a place we've not got a good record, if you take into account the old White Hart Lane. A point against the top 6 away from home is a bonus in my eyes. It's a game that you don't expect to get anything from. However Spursy, or whatever you want to call it, they can be, it's a game where more often than not, they beat us. So fantastic. And the way we nullified some of their threats, even Kulusevski coming off the bench, he's been their player of the season so far. He did nothing apart from get unfortunately raked down the calf by Kearney. But great performance, Jack. And is there anything you'd like to add on just that performance in particular? And what are the things that you think we should take into the Brighton game? What are the main takeaways for you in terms of how we set up? Because let's face it, Brighton are coming into it in draw against Southampton side, equally impressive form, but better form than Tottenham, really. They've had it for longer term. They're higher than them in the league, scoring for fun mostly, press high up the pitch as Tottenham do. What do you reckon that we're going to set up like against them on Thursday?
It's really difficult because our midfield is basically almost non-existent.
Non-existent, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's got to be an element of taking the game to Brighton here. We are the home team. Let's not sit back. I don't think in any scenario Marco Silva will say we're going to be sitting off Brighton and sort of trying to play them on the break. I think it will be the other way around. I think that Hertzler will know that Fulham like to dominate the ball. They like to bring the game to an opponent at Craven Cottage. We saw it against West Ham. We saw it against Villa, to be fair, from the start. We saw it against Newcastle. These are opponents who are as good as us, but I think we can get the better of them by having that home advantage. I think it is time to see Iwobi on the red line, on the central line, playing him in a more central position. We discussed it in the group chat this morning, a team, a lineup, and although I didn't actually respond because I was just not aware of what was going on, I did agree with the team. There is a question that Pereira could just come back in and could play the similar sort of midfield, a very familiar sort of midfield with Berger and Smith Rowe. That would make a lot of sense, but there's a lot of stuff going on off the pitch right now that is a little bit up in the air, and it's the first time under first time this season where something has happened and we've all gone, oh, that's not quite right. Something's not right there. So it's to sound like Gary Neville. I would keep, there's a question of bringing in Castagna for this one, but I think Tete should start. And I think actually Castagna could probably play against Arsenal, one of the two, because it would feel more fresh to freshen things up in that position. Obviously, shout out to Ryan Seston as well, who came on, did very, very well. And that's his first Premier League minutes of the season. And all the players sort of pushing him over to the away end to get the applause. And I genuinely I don't want to be disrespectful, but you generally sometimes forget he is even at the club with the amount of minutes he's had so far this season, almost nothing. And he can play a vital role in this team. And I thought he did okay. He did well when he came on. For me, it's going to be Berger, Lukic, Smith Rowe midfield. Berger, Iwobi, Smith Rowe midfield. Wilson to start, Nelson to start, and then Raul Jimenez. Obviously, Traore could start and probably could start. Did I just say could start and probably could start?
You did.
He could start.
He could start, and to be fair, he could start, and he probably could start as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think he should start. I think that he should be an option off the bench. I agree. Well, we agreed with the team, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I agree with what you're saying as well about, there could be some rotation at fullback. I would rather Tete plays because I thought he was fantastic again. But I see your point because I know that a few times he got rotated last season when we had those sort of 3 games in a week. In an ideal world, I think that Tete starts this and Arsenal. I'd certainly rather out of the two, he starts the Arsenal game. Just because I think that he needs to be a little bit more on it versus their wingers. With no disrespect to Brighton, you've got a fantastic forward line.
Brilliant.
Let's just face it, the quality of the opposition is slightly in favour of Arsenal right now, especially with players like Odegaard back. And we're not going to speak before that game, Jack, but that's another. So we've basically got 2 really tough home games in the space of a few days. Now, we've got a fantastic record against Brighton. Since we've come up to the Premier League, we had a decent record against them in the Championship as well, but we haven't lost to them in the Premier League. Obviously, last season, we beat them by 3-0. We've played them 4 times. Is it 4? Yeah, 4 times since we came up in 2018 at home. We've won 3. We've drawn 1. The 1 was a 0-0 draw in lockdown. The other 3 we won. We've not lost at the Amex either. Not that's particularly relevant for this one, but we've been a bit of a bogey team for them. And we were a bit of a bogey team for Arsenal last season as well. And the majority of our games in the last few years have been relatively even, aside from that 3-0 loss when they were in the peak of their powers 2 seasons ago. This is a really good litmus test for where we are, as was the Tottenham game. I'm far more confident for the Brighton game. But the issue with the Brighton game is that we don't have Lukic. The issue is obviously also that Anderson is still not back, although Diop did great. We're just down a few players. Kearney suspended, no Harrison Reed, potentially no George Cuenca as well. Yeah. I'm nervous about Bassi because he's on 4 yellows. I'm nervous about when Cuenca's back. I'm hoping that he's just on the bench on Thursday. And then we're thinking, even if Bassi gets suspended, although that's throwing him into the deep end a bit with a start against Arsenal, at least we have a recognised centre-back that can fill in. That's not a youth player such as Amissa, who fantastic to see him on the bench. But, again, you don't want that to be where he makes his first start, probably. For a score prediction, Jack, I think we should do both games. And the Brighton one, I think this is one where if you look at both these games, Brighton, I think we need to go for 3 points. Arsenal, I would take a point, even though we beat them last season. And I think that if we got 4 points out of these 2 home games, I'd be absolutely buzzing, if I'm being honest, regardless of which way round it came.
We've scored in every game this season apart from Man United.
Yeah.
I mean, we have goals in this team. In fact, we should have scored more goals. Wolves are like the same as well. They drew a blank on the opening day with Arsenal, and since then they've scored in every game. And obviously they've got worse results than us this season. It's sort of I looked at that. I don't want to go back to the Wolves game, but I looked at Wolves and I went, wow, they could really kick on from here. And then Jose Sarr acts like the biggest idiot ever. Gives away.
Sorry, why did they concede the funniest goals ever? Why couldn't they have just done one of those against us? That's what, it was like every player just decided to drop clang after. I think Evan Nielsen won 3 penalties.
Well, yeah,
in one game.
It was just crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, Wolves. I don't know why we're talking about Wolves, but they had the chance to really kick on after that Fulham win and lost to Bournemouth, who I think are no mugs either. What were we talking about before that? Oh, score predictions. Yeah, score predictions. I'm backing Fulham to beat Brighton.
Me too.
Yeah, 2-1. I think we'll.
Me too.
Yeah, I think we'll score. They'll then equalise and we'll score a winner. Obviously, I am very wary of. I'm looking forward to seeing Matt O'Reilly play. Hopefully, he does play. And they've got a couple of really good players in Believer.
Bagging, isn't he? He just is bagging a goal.
Matt O'Reilly. I mean, there's no Scott Parker at the Cottage to shush, so I don't know who'd be shushing because we were all advocates for Matt O'Reilly to come through and actually play a big part in this Fulham team. And Scott Parker went, no, I'm going to play my brother-in-law Harry Arter instead. The rest is history. Still annoys me to this day, given obviously he scored the winner against Manchester City just a few weeks ago. I'm backing a goal from. What did I say this morning? I said, someone's going to score for us, and then who knows? Muniz off the bench to win it. That's what I said.
Okay.
So I really was quite charmed by Muniz when he came on. I thought he caused a bit of a handful.
Okay, nice.
He charmed me.
Yeah.
He had something about him which I haven't seen in previous weeks.
Yeah, I'd still like to see him actually look like he wants to score a goal though, because I loved his hold-up play was a little bit back to what we saw at the end of last season when he had the good run. He was winning everything aerially. He was first to every ball. Loved it. My problem with Muniz recently has been he's not in any position ever where he looks like he can score a goal. In terms of he finally had a chance right at the end when Wilson did that great run. Udogie lost the ball. And he's busting his gut to get up there, don't get me wrong, but not into a position where he's actually going to receive the ball. If you watch it back, he never gets into a position where Wilson can actually pass it to him. Yeah. And it completely negates the point of him running up there in the first place. Wilson might as well be alone. If he runs to the 6-yard line, Wilson can pass it across. And he's done it a couple of times this season. Even against Brentford, and to his benefit, he took a man away from where Wilson ran into. But if Wilson's not there, Muniz has ran away from the ball and away from the goal. and I've got to be honest, I don't know if he meant to make room for Wilson. Sometimes I don't know what goes on in his head. And I would love for him to score a goal because Jimenez had a couple without a goal now. I think it's 4. Hold up, play great again. He did miss another good chance. I don't think I want to see them swap yet, but someone has got to be pushing to take his place because if goal scorer's not scoring goals, someone's got to be.
Just looking at the front four, Mitoma, João Pedro, Ruta, Welbeck. I absolutely love that front four. There's so much talent in there. You've got a striker in Welbeck who is been around the block for quite a while, but he's on the form of his life basically this season. Ruta, great signing from Leeds. João Pedro has always been very, very good. Mitoma as well. Very likeable team have Brighton. And obviously when they lost De Zerbi, I thought, wheels could fall off. But Brighton, you know what Brighton are like. I think they're a better run club than Brentford by a clear mile. And when they lose a manager in Graham Potter or Roberto De Zerbi, they have the replacement coming in and everyone will be like, I think they'll fall off now. Or maybe not everyone, but a lot of people would think that. But no, they're marching on and, solid marching on and doing fantastically well. And I actually have been very, very impressed with Brighton this season. I don't think it's going to be easy whatsoever. But I do think Fulham have got enough at home. You know what I always think about when Fulham play at home? It's those combinations down the left-hand side. especially in the first half. It's Robinson, it'll be Nelson, it'll be Smith Rowe. The way Smith Rowe sort of comes to the near side to sort of receive the ball and play these little triangles, it really is very attractive to watch. And then the space opens up for either, dare I say, Pereira, or on the other side with Traore as well, and then Jimenez, in the middle as well, causing problems. Fulham really are quite good at creating chances. The one thing that worried me was when we went behind against Wolves, we struggled to create clear-cut chances. But always at 0-0, you feel like Fulham can take the lead in games. I have to say the response from going 1-0 down against Spurs was as good as I've seen from Fulham when they've gone a goal down there so far this season. Great to see TC score. And then going ahead to
thinking off the top of my head, in fact, I think we've taken the lead in every single home game at some stage. And in every game aside from Brentford, we've taken the lead by going 1-0 up in every single one of those games.
Yeah,
which,
that's true.
When you think about it, it does sort of build on that point that a few people have made where we dropped quite a few points from winning positions this season, which is something that was uncharacteristic of us last season, even the season before. Last season in particular, we were great at holding on to leads. But it does show that maybe we're just being a little bit more potent early on in games in particular. I feel like that first half performance against Tottenham was fantastic. And I feel like that's been the standard for most games this season. Even games when we've then fallen apart a little bit in the second half, for example, Villa, for example, Wolves, both of those were level at half-time, level against United at half-time, level at City at half-time. The only one that I can think of was when we were 1-0 down to Brentford. And even then, we'd been the better team in that first half. One of the poorest first half performances this season has been Ipswich, when we were still 1-1 at half-time and could have taken the lead. So it's been such a high standard. And I really do think that if we take the game to these teams, we can beat any of them, especially at home.
Do you know what's frustrating is I was talking to someone before the Wolves game, and we were saying, I think a big one's coming. And when I say a big one, I mean like a big win. And I didn't necessarily think it was going to be against Wolves. And then obviously look at the fixtures that we have after this. And, I'm not going to say it's going to happen against Brighton or Arsenal or Liverpool. I do think we will dismantle a team at some point by just everything clicks and everything goes right and defensively we're sound. But if it takes, over half the season for that to happen, fair enough. But there has been times where we should have been in those positions and just haven't. Looking ahead to Arsenal, scoring 5 against West Ham, it was probably the most craziest first half of football I've seen so far this season. Obviously very good. Now they're starting Trossard over Martinelli. Havertz causing all manner of problems. Saka's been fantastic. Odegaard's back in the team. Rice playing very well. And obviously the set piece routines are proving to be an absolute handful. Gabriel scoring for Arsenal against Fulham a couple of seasons ago from a corner as well, and under Parker as well, actually, did Gabriel in that opening game defeat. Last season, beating them by 2-1 at the Cottage. You lost the league to Bobby Reed is still one of my favourite songs of all time. Arsenal, obviously, I don't really know what to expect. I think obviously it's going to be very tricky. I think back in the title race now that they won and City lost at the weekend, even though Liverpool have stolen a march on Arsenal. I think there are enough games in the season to make up those points, of course, and they'll have to win this game against Fulham. They basically have to win every game now to sort of catch up with Liverpool, the standards that they're setting. How do you see this one going? It's very hard to look ahead 2 games in advance, but we have recently done very well against Arsenal, and I'm not fearing this game whatsoever.
No, it was, and last season we have to remember when we played them both times. Firstly, away in August, we'd just been dismantled by Brentford, 3-0 at home. Ream had been sent off, so Bassi was making his debut. We didn't know that Pliny was going to be starting the game. He came back, which was great, but we were fearing the absolute worst, and we put in a fantastic performance to get a well-earned point with 10 men, leading for 70 minutes of the game. It could have been 3. And then obviously that Adama chance right at the end. And then the same sort of situation on New Year's Eve where we'd just been dismantled 3-0 by Bournemouth. We'd just lost 2-0 to Burnley and 3-0 to Newcastle in the league before that as well. We were in terrible form, whereas they were in okay form aside from they just lost to West Ham at home, I think. But aside from that, they were playing fine. And even then, it was sort of smash and grab from West Ham. And then they go 1-0 up early doors, which is the same as the season before when they beat us 3-0. I was thinking, here we go, one of these days again. early goal, and we can't allow this to happen again, because I don't know what happened. It was like someone had an off switch for Arsenal last year, an on switch for Fulham, flicked them both at the same time, did a little toggle, and we battered them. Honestly, we were great, and it was probably one of our best performances of the season, even if the scoreline doesn't necessarily show it in terms of dominance. The level of opposition we were up against, and the I suppose low amount of chances we gave to them, we had chances to go 3-1 up ourselves. So really hoping for more of the same this time. I think the first goal is key. I don't like the idea of chasing a game against this Arsenal side. They're very, very solid at the back. I know they've let in a few recently, and maybe more than normal. One saving grace is that I love that we're playing them when they've got a midweek game, even though we've got one day less, because we play Brighton on Thursday, they play United at home on Wednesday. Just because it gives hopefully a bit of a chance of some rotation. Since Odegaard's come back, they've been a different team, essentially. And that seems to be the case a lot. He's one of their star players, obviously, and his link up with Saka on the right is just, unfortunately for us, phenomenal. And one of those where it can basically just dismantle your team in one. So I'm excited for the game. I'm excited for the prospect of going up against them. The first top team on paper that we're playing at home this season as well. We've played most of them away, both Manchester clubs and Tottenham, obviously. So I'm really excited. Absolutely snap your hand off for a point. And I'm going to say, you know what? I reckon it will be a draw. I reckon it will be 1-1. And the reason I say that is I'm backing us to play like we have been. Wolves seems to be, so far at least, an anomaly performance-wise. And I do believe that if we play to the best of our ability, we're not giving up many chances and we're creating a lot ourselves. And this is one of the tougher matches we're going to have all season. But we're at home. We can give anyone a game. Let's hope for maybe some fatigue for them on Wednesday. And, imagine if there's a world where Saka or Odegaard don't play. We've seen what can happen when they don't. Bournemouth, forget the Saliba red card, were conceding no chances against them. They were never in any danger of really losing that game. 10 men meant they could win it. But we've seen Arsenal be ineffective a few times this season. I just hope we can do it again. But oh my goodness, we've conceded a couple from set pieces this season. We have to be strong, because if I see that guy on the sidelines racing forward for the Sky Sports cameras when they get a corner 5 minutes in, my head's going to be in a distant universe, Jack. And that's even without the goal going in. So we just need to hope that there's no camera cutting to him very quickly.
Yeah, it's what I will say about this Arsenal game is that I think both sides, particularly Arsenal, we've seen this season, are incredibly emotional teams. And that probably comes from the manager. I think Marco Silva's an emotional guy on the touchline, and so is Mikel Arteta. I do think, and the same happened last season, if you get under their skin, which we did, and if we do that on Sunday, we will cause them problems. They just love to seemingly lose their head out of nowhere. I don't necessarily think that will result in us, them conceding the game and us winning 3-0. But I think that there are dark arts you can achieve against Arsenal, even though they like to think that they are playing the dark arts against you. If we were to get the first goal and they're chasing, we really could get under their skin, and that is something we need to think about a lot.
You're spot on, because if this is a football match, as good as we've been this season, 11v11, both at our best, they will beat us, because we've seen that in a flash they can make a fairly average team look silly, and that's West Ham. We're better than West Ham. We're better defensively than West Ham, but even so, we've seen that they can turn it on. Forest have been great defensively this season, so has Sporting Lisbon, and you've seen what they can do against them. But if we make this more of a battle, which we can do, we've got an incredibly physical team. We'll have Lukic back for that game, and hopefully nothing happens to Berger. If Bassi doesn't get a yellow, then we've got him and Diop. You never know, Anderson could be back as well. I doubt it. Both fullbacks, incredibly athletic in Robinson and Tete. I really feel that we can get at them, and we mustn't forget the fact that we've got a lot of ex-Arsenal players.
Of course.
Narrative. They want to perform. Yeah, narrative. Iwobi's been so fantastic this season. You don't know what's going to happen with Smith Rowe, because he's blown a little bit hot and cold, mostly hot, I would say. But there's been games that have sort of passed him by, which I do want him to cut out a bit. It'll be a shame that Nelson can't play. But I thought that Leno had a good game on Sunday with reasonably little to do, confident in the air, saved when he needed to. So I'm feeling optimistic about it. Obviously, that will be quashed if we lose to Brighton. But as we both just said, we fancy us to get something. I want to put it out there that I don't think a draw against Brighton would be a woeful result. I think it would be fine. I do think that would definitely postpone any sort of aspirations of European football for the time being. Never say never. We could always catch up, but the sort of game you need to win, especially against one of the rivals for those conference, Europa positions, whatever. There's a haggle of teams, including us, that are just outside. And so those points, you really need to get them against those teams that are also going for those places, vying for those places. And especially because we've got Arsenal and Liverpool after that. And, any points there are an absolute bonus.
Absolutely. A tough run of fixtures, but hopefully we get enough points to come out of it fairly respectably. Now then, there's an issue here with Andreas Pereira. It's taken us half an hour to get onto it, but that's because there's been 2 games to preview. I mean, everyone knows. We don't have to relay what's happened. No. Everyone knows what's happened. When I saw that state, I was just sort of quite luckily had quite a lot of signal in the away end, and I thought, I'm just going to check something quickly. And then I saw Andreas Pereira's Instagram story, and I was like, okay, that's interesting, because I actually wasn't expecting him to be dropped from the squad, because this is very naive from myself, but because it wasn't brought up in the press conference, I thought that maybe it's a complete non-issue. In fact, I saw the original article and I thought, there's not much in that. And then suddenly, when Dom Smith tweets about it, I'm like, okay, there's something in that. Not in the squad, puts out a statement. The company, the publication who did the original story, then posted the video. I know your head's hot. I don't really have much to say on it, but let's hear your thoughts.
Well, firstly, how thick can you be to deny something that got filmed? By the way, well, let's just get that out of the way. You were there. You were on a bloody video call. You can see it's recording, and then you go, "Oh, I didn't say that." Yeah, I mean, just bizarre. Like he'd have been far better just apologising for it and saying, "You know what? I said it. I didn't really mean it in that way. I'm apologising that this is how it came across." But he didn't. He said they have manufactured how it looks. There's now a translation word for word at the bottom, which shows that they've said exactly what was spoken by Andreas Pereira. Although I can't speak Portuguese. There's a few people that have mentioned what was said that can. And they said that, he did say it. And look, here's the thing. He's got a bit lucky this week in terms of we've obviously lost Reed, we've lost Lukic, and we've lost Kearney, and that there's a route back into the squad here, just in terms of numbers. I hope that Marco Silva stays strong. But Marco Silva as well is trying to defend him by basically claiming that this is not why he's been dropped. I mean, it's just such a coincidence. I don't believe him, if I'm being honest. I don't believe him. And some might, and that's completely fair. You might believe he picked up a knock in training or whatever. You might believe there's something else going on entirely. But that comes out. There's no mention of any fitness issue with Pereira in the press conference. And all of a sudden, it's not just he's on the bench, he's dropped from the squad, which never happens under Silva. For that statement then to come out, almost as if signifying, oh, that's why I've been dropped. I'm going to put this statement out just before kickoff. Too much of a coincidence. We were better without him, and we are better without him. I put out a tweet before the game that last season, every time he didn't start, we got a positive result. That was a draw against Brighton away. That was 3 wins as well. Luton final day, Everton opening day, and ironically, Arsenal at home on New Year's Eve. We set up better. We look more balanced without him. And I would be completely and utterly glad to see the back of him, if I'm being honest. But we don't have many players in midfield, and it would not surprise me at all if he's back in the squad against Brighton on Thursday, just due to lack of personnel. There's young players like Josh King. Are you going to throw Josh King in against a fantastic Brighton midfield? I don't know. I don't think it would be the wisest thing to do. If I'm being completely honest, as much as I'd love to see him play. If you're winning a game by a couple of goal margin with a few minutes left, then introduce him. I'd love it. But when the game's in the balance, I think it's a decision you might look back at and think, shouldn't have done that. Might be wrong, might be fantastic, but I think it's a bit too risky myself against a good team. Just a stupid situation all around that's entirely avoidable. Silly from his part, but I think what is clear, Marco doesn't stand for this sort of thing. You've put it out yourself. As soon as last season there was anything with Tosin, he got dropped from the squad, and Diop, who again has been great this season, came in and did a wonderful job. I think that if anything, he's now seen that combination of Berger and Lukic worked wonderfully. The balance was great. Smith Rowe just in front of them. And I hope that we see something similar, obviously without Lukic on Thursday night.
Yeah, I just feel like the squad harmony has been sort of interrupted by Andreas Pereira and his antics. Obviously not good for a team that's vying for big things. And the silly thing about this is, if he just got his head down and worked hard, he doesn't have to look for a move because he would be in a position where he's playing in a European competition or he's playing at a higher level, because Fulham are probably going to achieve those things if they were to stick with the form they're on and the squad they've got and the players the way in which they're playing. Pereira can be a part of that. But he seemed to have got. There was talk in the summer actually about Pereira right at the end of the window. Actually, I seem to remember being at Birmingham away for the cup, and I read an article that he was very, very close to joining Forest, or Forest had a real interest in him, and obviously it was too late in the window and it broke down. And obviously we weren't prepared to sell him at all. So it really has been a weird sort of few days, and I hope Pereira can at least learn from his lesson, and if he's integrated back in, if not, it's going to be January, and it's going to be, he might have to be sold, and if we can make a nice bit of money from it and replace him, then we'll see. We'll see. Watford in the cup finally.
Yep.
Cool.
But boring. But also like sort of tie that is, it's winnable on paper. No disrespect to Watford. They're probably happy with it as well. I know the Marco Silva angle makes it interesting for them. I've seen a few Watford fans very up for it. I'm happy with it because I wanted a home draw personally, because that early in January I'll probably struggle to get to an away game, money-wise and just general admin-wise. But home game I'm happy with. I don't know if the West Ham game is completely confirmed to be on the following Tuesday yet, but if it is, you imagine this could be on the Friday night, which I don't hate. Doubt it will be televised, but with some of the TV picks I've had recently, you never know. But reasonably happy with it. Just happy to avoid any of the big boys early on, to be honest with you.
I would be happy if Josh King started that game.
Me
Marco
too.
said that a start is coming. I don't know whether he was hinting to Brighton or to Arsenal or for Liverpool. I would imagine probably not, but the under-21s are playing tonight against Willstone, so we'll see if he's involved for that one. If he's not, then I imagine he won't be, because with 2 days to go, he might be involved in the squad against Brighton. Joe, it's had to be a long one today. There's been a lot to cover. Thanks so much for being here. And we got 2 games, so we'll speak again early next week, looking ahead to the game against Liverpool.
Yeah, hopefully in positive circumstances. With no pleasure. Good to be back. Thanks everyone for watching and your support on the channel. Enjoy one or both games if you're going. If not, enjoy them both anyway. They're both on TV, so enjoy it. Should be a great week. At least we hope so. Yeah, back in the press box for these games, which is great. Enjoyed my time in the crowd, but back to work it is. After a nice day off, I suppose, even though I came home and just tapped up all the quotes from Marco Silva. I thought it would be interesting to see what he had to say anyway. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll speak again early next week.